Hello everyone, and welcome to the introduction video for a new series I will be starting for the game Deja Vu 1 Nightmare Comes True. Deja Vu 1 will not have a config and tech or a modding video. I hope you enjoy the information and that it gives you the best Deja Vu 1 experience you can have. Any links that are covered will be in the description of the video. I will be covering a few different games in this introduction video. They are not directly related to each other because they are separate games. However, they are made by the same developer and the same game engine, and they play the same way. I also plan to play this group of games on my channel in the future. Deja Vu 1 being the first of these games released is where I am starting. The bulk of information will be in this introduction video about the games and their developer. This doesn't mean the other games discussed here won't have their own introduction video in the future. Hopefully my reasonings for grouping them together will be made clear throughout this video. Deja Vu 1 was developed by ICOM Simulations. ICOM Simulations was an American developer that was founded in Wheeling, Illinois by Todd Zipnick in 1981. He passed away from Hodgkin's disease in 1991. Mr. Zipnick is remembered for his innovations and advancements in video game technologies. He helped create, refine, and establish the point-and-click genre of games. ICOM Simulations are best known for game series such as Deja Vu, Uninvited, and Shadowgate. Most ICOM Simulation games are now owned by the company Zojoi. Zojoi was started by former ICOM Simulations developers David Marsh and Carl Roloffs in 2012. The company is based out of Charlottesville, Virginia. The goal of the company is to release ICOM Simulations games on other platforms, including new games in the existing series. They have done just as they said they would. We'll discuss this further in detail as we continue. The games Deja Vu, Uninvited, and Shadowgate are part of a series of point-and-click adventure games called MacVenture. These games were developed in a game engine of the same name. The title MacVenture comes from the words Macintosh and adventure. The MacVenture series of games sold over 2 million units collectively by 2003. Deja Vu takes place in Chicago in 1941 and is a detective mystery adventure. Uninvited and Shadowgate are both horror adventure games. The games were designed for the Macintosh computers of 1985 and consisted of black and white graphics, utilizing a first-person perspective with a point-and-click interface. A stark difference between what the company Sierra was doing around the same time with games like Space Quest and King's Quest. Those games used a third-person perspective and a text parser for inputting commands. I grew up with Sierra games, so I don't make that comparison negatively, just as an example of a different design idea. You can check out my playthroughs of Space Quest 1 and King's Quest 1 if you would like. Links to those playlists will be in this video's description. The games in the MacVenture series have been ported to various gaming consoles, including PC. These later releases added color graphics, and in some cases, slight redesigns to accommodate the system they were being ported to. I will cover the releases with you here shortly. I think it would have been really cool if these three classic games had been released on the Nintendo DS. If they could have made it work with the touchscreen interface, I bet the games would have sold very well. I will be playing the 8-bit Nintendo versions of the MacVenture series of games, at least to start with. Truth be told, I've never played Deja Vu or Uninvited. I've only ever played and beat Shadowgate on the Nintendo. It's not to say the originals or re-releases of those originals are not better. I don't have experience with them, nor do I own them, so I can't speak for the originals. I may play the originals in the future, but for now I want to focus on the NES versions. Given that I will be playing the NES version, it uses a gamepad and not a mouse. The interface still functions as a point and click, but with gamepad control. So some people may find this aspect of this version more slow and tedious. Some descriptions or imagery in the NES versions will likely be different. Back then, Nintendo had strict rules on what they would let be in their games, be it in the visuals or even text descriptions, trying to convince parents how family-friendly their console and games were. Sometimes, though, things would slip through and make it into the final releases. These days, Nintendo has loosened up on those policies, as it started affecting game sales, I imagine. Funny how money can make you change your morals, huh? That being said, there is a mod that I will be utilizing related to this. Hey, you said you weren't doing a modding video. Yes, I did. And that is because this mod is simple and doesn't warrant a full modding video about it. I want to go over some resource links. These links will be made available in the video description of Gameplay Part 1. The first being a mod here. I will be using an uncensored mod in my playthrough. It restores censored graphics and text into the US version taken from the Japanese NES version. At least that is my understanding of what it does. Please see the mod's description. Next thing is Game Genie. I will provide links to some codes so you can mess around with them if you would like. I won't be using any of these codes in my playthrough. The last thing is a walkthrough. I'll provide a link to a walkthrough in case you need help. I may use it myself if I get too stuck. So all three links of those will be in the first Gameplay Part 1 video description. So the genre this falls into, as I mentioned already, is a point-and-click adventure detective mystery. And according to the website How Long to Beat, it should take roughly 3 hours to 4.5 hours to finish. Now let's go over the game releases by year. I'm going to cover Deja Vu, Uninvited, and Shadowgate to be comprehensive regarding the MacVenture series. Do note that I am not listing every release or port. I'm mostly focusing on the original Macintosh, NES or Nintendo, and the PC versions. So the first one we'll start with here is Deja Vu 1, Nightmare Comes True for the Macintosh, and that came out in 1985. This was the first original release of Deja Vu and the first released game in the MacVenture series. Then we have Uninvited, which came out on the Macintosh in 1986. Then Shadowgate 1 came out on the Macintosh in 1987. Then we have Deja Vu 2, Lost in Las Vegas, came out on the Macintosh in 1988. Shadowgate 1 for the NES or Nintendo came out in 1989. Deja Vu 1, Nightmare Comes True for the NES or Nintendo came out in 1990. And then Uninvited came out on the NES or Nintendo in 1991. Beyond Shadowgate came out on the TurboGrafx/PC Engine CD in 1993. Shadowgate 64, Trials of the Four Towers, on the Nintendo 64 in 1999. Shadowgate 64 Rising on the Nintendo 64. However, this game was cancelled and never came out. Shadowgate Classic came out on the Game Boy Color in 2005. Shadowgate Remake came out on PC and iOS in 2014. Deja Vu 1 Nightmare Comes True came out on PC in 2015. Deja Vu 2 Lost in Las Vegas came out on PC in 2015. Shadowgate 1 came out for the PC in 2015. And then Uninvited, the Macintosh version, came out on PC in 2015. Then we have Shadowgate VR, The Mines of Mythrock. This came out on the Oculus Quest VR in 2021. Then we come to Shadowgate 2 for the PC, and this is supposed to come out in 2024. As of this video, it has not come out yet. And then the last game being Beyond Shadowgate for the PC, and this game has no release date, so it's still being put together as far as I know. So I'm going to go a little bit over some release information here, mostly regarding Shadowgate. The two games beyond Shadowgate are not the same. The one that has not been released yet is intended to be a direct sequel to the Shadowgate from the Nintendo system. I'm sure with improved graphics over the original NES version. They really should have called it something else. It's only going to add more confusion later, with those both being called Beyond Shadowgate. The next one here, Shadowgate 64 Rising, was going to be a sequel to the Trials of the Four Towers. It was cancelled before it was finished because Nintendo was transitioning from the Nintendo 64 to the GameCube. I guess they couldn't salvage what they had to move it over to the GameCube hardware, so they just canceled it. Shadowgate Classic looks like a retold version of the NES release. And Shadowgate Remake is a modern version built from the ground up. I messed around with it some time ago but never completed it. I am interested in going back to it, as I could already tell at that time it was a well-made game. All of the PC releases from 2015 on Steam are the Macintosh version and not the NES versions. They do include the black and white versions as well as the enhanced color versions, not to mention full mouse support, unlike the NES versions where you have to use the gamepad. Shadowgate in VR sounds pretty cool. It received mixed reviews on Steam, but that doesn't mean it's a bad game. I don't have VR, so it's just a curiosity to me. Shadowgate 2 is supposed to come out in 2024, and as stated, is not out as of the making of this video. I hope you enjoyed this information about Deja Vu and the MacVenture games. In the next video, we will be getting into the gameplay segments directly. Thank you for listening and watching. Bye for now.